Welcome back. You're watching Sunday edition here on KTN News. We have been talking about the IEBC as they continue to prepare for the October 26th repeat presidential election. We were discussing about the CEO of the commission, Ezra Chiloba. We did seek to find out from Kenyans what they feel should happen with the CEO of the IEBC.
Na Chiloba kwa election ya tarehe 26 mwezi wa 10.
Maandamano ni haki yetu na tunahisi Chiloba toke kabla tuja maandamana. Asikiwe kama Isaac Hassan.
Mimi sina imani na kura yangu kama waizi wajatoka pale.
Naona kuna malumbano kati ya Chiloba na Chebukati, kumaanisha kuwa kuna jambo ambalo wamelificha.
Billions of shillings have gone down the drain in the bungled presidential election of 8th of August 2017. What punishment should we give those people who bungled and messed up with our monies? We cannot just smile at them and say, okay, we give you again another blank check to go and spend and bang.
We cannot have confidence in that team to give them the mandates to run the fresh presidential election.
Mitambo tu ilikuwa na itilafu kidogo, na wakipatiwa wakati wao wanaweza kufanya kazi nzuri.
Chairman Chebukati niko imani na yeye, lakini kulingana na ile mipangilio yenye ameweka saizi kuregesha Ezra Chiloba tena kwa hiyo komiti, sina imani hasa cause Ezra Chiloba, huyo Chebukati mwenyewe ndiye alisema Ezra Chiloba ndiye alileta conflict kwa mambo na IEBC wakaribu kura.
Unajua tu maneno ya polisi na wengine, unajua hawa watu wenye wanaenda maandamano sio wote wabaya. Maandamano ni haki yako.
Wacha isikuwe na fujo ya kwamba mabiashara zifungwe ama ni nini. Wacha kila kitu ikue peaceful.
Mambo ya NASA kwenda maandamano kila siku ikome.
Demonstration haisaidii anything. I would prefer they go to court instead.
Watembe lakini wasipore mali ya umma.
All right, those are just the voices of some Kenyans concerning the CEO of the IEBC, Ezra Chiloba. Let's move away from that. And one other important of the NASA irreducible minimum demands is that the use of a printing firm other than Al Ghurair in printing of the ballot papers. We understand Al Ghurair are already printing ballot papers for the October 26th repeat presidential election. NASA has also rejected a deal between IEBC and Morpho, 2 billion Kenya shillings deal to provide the technology for the October 26th presidential election. All this much, where does that leave NASA-IEBC relations?
Well, you know, there's a requirement that you have to do another election within 60 days. One would have expected for Mr. Chebukati to have the necessary goodwill, energy, and backbone to bring stakeholders for a quick meeting, and even before getting the full ruling from judgments from the Supreme Court, to identify the challenges that they faced. If it's about suppliers, there's nothing wrong in terminating a contract with anybody in the world so that we get a supplier acceptable to all parties. And all these suppliers must not just be acceptable to NASA. They must be acceptable to Jubilee, and not only the two political parties, because it's not only these two people who are stakeholders. All Kenyans are stakeholders. So you need to get people from across the breadth. You get civil society, you get the Kenya National Union of Teachers, you get Atoli and Kotu and everybody. Just to identify those challenges, getting new suppliers who do not cast aspersions on the integrity of the electoral process. For Al Ghurair, we are told that there were a number of multiple literature all over town, which, according to the Supreme Court, was the basis of the irregular election. So those things need to be ironed out. When you come to the supply of technology, Morpho, we are not meant to understand that a few days ago, in the middle of this conversation, that IEBC has signed another contract for 2.4 billion. So one wonders, if this issue has been described by NASA as an irreducible minimum, why would you be in a hurry to sign another contract? What can't you say to have all the partners sit and agree on a way forward? In my view, Mr. Chebukati and his commissioners, as well as the secretariats, they need to bend backwards. They need to be very sensitive to the needs of Jubilee, to the needs of NASA, to the needs of all Kenyans, so that we have a free, fair, and credible election. And they must be informed by the fact, Justice Maraga indicated, that if you bungle this election, you come back to my court, I'll not hesitate to nullify it again. So if you're not very careful, if we don't have an IEBC bending backwards to accommodate stakeholder interest, we are going to be stuck in the Supreme Court for the next 5 years. And now that begs the question, Why? I mean, why can't these guys work at IBC, take a walk? You participated in the election, the buck stops with you. Why can't you take a walk? I mean, is it cast in iron that if it's not OT Morpho, then there's no technology supply in Kenya? Or is it the case that OT Morpho has got a monopoly all over the world? They're the only ones who supply technology. And also, Ben, that these frivolous arguments being brought to the table, that look what has happened in Germany, that an almost manual election, and other parts of the world. But it must not be lost on people that folks in those countries, in Germany, they have no appetite for stealing elections. You can do it manual and the election will be free, fair and credible. In the UK, you have volunteers doing elections. If you, on a normal day in the UK when people are casting the ballots, you don't get to see traffic, or rather you don't get to see policemen all over. It's just traffic policemen, 1 or 2 directing traffic. But in Kenya, everything has to be electronic because we have a very good history of trying to manipulate the system. We've got a very high appetite for mischief, which must be cured by technology.
All right. Mutinda, NASA and IEBC obviously disagreeing on a lot of issues. Some of these demands have been rejected, others are pending. What are your final thoughts on this now? Like, what next?
My final thought is that, unlike my co-panelists here, IEBC should be guided by the law and the constitution, not by the protagonists. Because, you know, it is not easy to harmonize competing interests anywhere in the world, even in the household unit level. And when you start saying that you should be listening to the protagonists about how to go about this, then that is the best way to achieve a state of inertia. As in, there will be no movement, there will be no progress. We need to understand that we are working with constraints. We have very few days, actually less than a month now, to the election. So the most important thing for IEBC is to ensure that whatever they do, they are covered by the constitution and the law. You know, it would be wrong to start casting aspersions on Al Ghurair or on Morpho, yet the problem is IEBC. Those are business people doing their business. And the person who contracts them is the IEBC. And I believe that those people work as per the guidelines that they've been given by their client, who is the IEBC. So I feel it is also unfair when we want to start bringing in people who are really not part and parcel of our election, but are coming in to provide certain services for IEBC to conduct a free and fair election. Right. Because when we start casting aspersions on them, I think it is also really unfair on them. Because if it is about the lack of integrity of IEBC, if that, for instance, from his argument, then it wouldn't matter who's going to print. Because at the end of the day, the people who are being brought the material are the ones who have integrity issues, not the printer. If it is about the IT services, it is not the provider of the IT services. And if at all even the provider of IT services is to get into doing things wrong, then it will be because of the kind of pressure or the kind of probably influence they will be getting from the client. So that's why I'm saying we should stop attacking other people who are not at the core of the election. The person who is at the core of the election and who has the mandate, constitutional mandate to conduct a free and fair election is the IEBC. So the IEBC should ensure that, for instance, we have a Public Procurement and Disposal Act 2005. If when they are giving the Al Ghurair the printing job, they are in conformity with that law, then there is nothing wrong. Right. Because at the end of the day, we should avoid a situation whereby they lose their independence because of them going out of their way to please protagonists who are not even agreeing on how they should move. Right. They should avoid that kind of approach so that we ensure that we beat the deadline. Like my friend, co-panelist Brian said, if at all, and the Supreme Court has actually given that assurance. If at all we go through this election and the NASA or even Jubilee find that there are things that did not go right, then we will still be at liberty to go back to the court so that the court can again pronounce itself on the issues we'll have taken before them.
All right, very quickly, Jared, what is your take on what he says?
Ben, we are here because of the Supreme Court decision. Otherwise, we would not be discussing this same thing. Now, there are particular transgressions that were identified by the Supreme Court as regards the conduct of IEBC. And what we said as NASA is that we actually raised these concerns about Al Ghurair days before the elections. And our fears came to pass. We even indicated earlier that there are fears that 2 million ballot papers have been printed over and above the statutory 1% requirement. When we raised all these issues, they thought we are just crying babies. At the end of the day, fake papers were flying on our ballot boxes. Jubilee, even though at the Supreme Court, when Councillor Orengo did say that, we need to open the ballot boxes to ascertain whether indeed what is contained in them are the actual numbers that were beamed by the IEBC's portal. Both Uhuru Kenyatta's lawyers and those of IEBC objected to that, and Orengo conceded and said, fine, we still have other bombshells that are still good enough to vitiate this particular election. Now, later on, when they had stuffed those ballot boxes and balanced everything, now they're crying foul to say those ballot boxes need to be opened so that we can ascertain our numbers. I mean, we are not going to be taken around like children. That is not our work. But let me tell you why Al Ghurair and Otimofo have been brought into this. When we were making concerns or raising concerns about their conduct, Jubilee and IEBC were in bed with them. So even when these transgressions have been identified by the Supreme Court, they are hell-bent on having these two people conduct the business because through them, they are still assured of another electoral theft. And we are not going to go that direction. Right. Now, Ben, this is also important to note. IEBC's election committee had come up with a budget of 800 million shillings to conduct the next round of election. IEBC, together with the Jubilee government, have said that this should not be 800 million, but should actually be 2.4 billion. The contract that was signed 2 days ago is at the tune of 2.4 billion. And remember,
where did Jubilee come in
the next elections, you will have your time.
So who is inflating this? Who is inflating this?
The past elections, we used 3.8 billion to do all 6 elective, to conduct elections for 6 elective positions.
Right.
And remember that not just one candidate was appearing on those ballot papers. Thousands and thousands of people. Here, we only talk about 2 people.
Is it the same kind of inflation as was 5 years ago?
Well, I'm not talking about 5 years ago. I'm talking about 8th of August.
All right.
So 2 months ago. And now they would want us to believe that out of those 6 positions, if you remove 5,
right,
and if you remove all the candidates who participated, you only save 1.4 billion shillings. You see, this is how Jubilee has managed to also infiltrate and put their dirty hands into the till.
Let me let Brian...
but let me finish, if you allow me. Otimofo refused to open our servers. They refused. And remember, this was not a magistrate court in Kenya. This was the Supreme Court.
Or IEBC refused?
Well, it is IEBC. They said Otimofo was asleep back in France. But this is what I'm saying. This is the point I'm driving home. If Otimofo can turn around and dishonor a decision made by our apex court on this land, I mean, who are they going to...
You've made your point.
Who are they? But let me ask you, Ben.
I want
assuming their magistrate court back in France gave them a similar order, were they going to refuse?
But they were not ordered by the court.
Were they going to refuse?
Was ordered.
Yes, Brian. Your final thoughts on it. Very quickly. Were they ordered by the court?
You know, Mofo was not part of the proceedings. So it will be wrong for Jared to accuse them that they did not honor court. They were not ordered. That's a fact. And he knows that. Number 2...
Well, it is a fact that Moite said they were sleeping.
Yes, of course. We have a time difference. And you've traveled a lot, you know that. This is what I'm saying.
So they slept for 24 hours?
We have several decisions based on Al Ghurair. In fact, when NASA went to court against the first order, the court disassociated the Jubilee Party from Al Ghurair, number 1. Number 2, in the Supreme Court ruling, the court found that the third respondent did not commit any crime and did not collude with IEBC. That's a fact. So you cannot take one piece of the ruling and feed it with yourself on the nullification, and then you dismiss the other part of the ruling. So the court ruled that Jubilee was not in bed with IEBC. That's a fact.
They are up to date.
let me finish. Now, on the issue of procurement and of services, IEBC is established under Article 14 of the Constitution, guided by Article 10. They are supposed to be independent from any political inclination, religion, race, creed, etc. So, for them to take orders from NASA, or for NASA to direct them, don't give this supplier this contract, don't give this supplier this thing. Those MOFO were not indicted. Algurea were not indicted. They provided what was supposed to be provided. And again, on the issue of contempt, where IBC did not open up the server. You know, for contempt proceeding to go on, you are given time to explain why you did not open the server. And that's why I had a problem with that ruling, because it went on a tangential issue. The main 50% of that ruling is about the registrar report, which was not even part of the petition. It was brought in when the petition was going on. And IEBC and Jubilee were given 10 minutes.
All right.
10 minutes to dispute the fact. You know, that is not reasonable enough. If you could have given, in fact, IBC said, give us time, we will open. You know, such a system is very huge. It's
Ben,
not
in one
easy
sentence.
to open it up.
Ben, in one sentence.
I want us to change
Just
gears.
1 second. All the parties that were involved in the court proceedings were given an opportunity to present their experts for that particular decision by the registrar to be arrived at.
Yes.
So Jubilee's experts were part of the registrar's...
But the point is this, Ben, it's the registrar report that went.
Where is
Even
your report?
NASA
Where's
tried
your
to
report?
bring...
Where's your report?
They were expunged.
Your
Even
time-
you are giving out to the courts your own report, because we might not agree with the registrar report.
We need to move on to other things. Your time is up. Let's try to move this conversation forward, shall we, and focus away from the IEBC. Of course, we shall be keeping an eye to see what will be happening this coming week. Now, on the other hand, in Parliament, the 12th Parliament is already in session, and there have been, or Jubilee have proposed amendments to the election laws, top of which have been, most of which have been controversial. NASA have rejected them. The Commission shall electronically and manually transmit the tabulated presidential results from a polling session to the constituency level, and in case of a dispute between the electronically and manually transmitted results, then the manual results shall prevail. That is just one of the contentious proposals among those amendments that have been proposed and are being moved by Jubilee. Let's listen into some of the reactions from both sides of the political divide to these amendments.
Midway. The most important thing is it's the NASA colleagues who are asking that we must have a level playing field for them to participate in the elections. What we are trying to do, they complain about server being in Spain, they complain about server being in France, server being in the clouds, all those complaints. We are telling them, don't bother about servers. The results will be announced as per the law we are making on the physical presentation of Form 34A. So I thought we were helping them.
But the question would be, you're seeking to amend laws that you made together in a bipartisan fashion with a joint parliamentary select committee. So this time around, this is being seen as unilateral.
No.
Jubilee saying that, you know what, we will not work as we did in good faith the last time. We want now to come back. And yet, the agreement at the time was there would be no changes to those laws.
There is no Jubilee. What has happened today is a function of the legislature of the National Assembly. The National Assembly is a house of all parties. There are more than, I think, 21 parties. You know, majority of them are not parliamentary parties because they have the numbers of coalition. But from where I sit, in fact, we have not amended any of the laws that we passed at the Reform Joint Houses Committee. The only thing we have clarified is what we did in the joint reform, which was Section 44A. The use of a complementary mechanism in the event technology fails.
So in effect, this law is going to create a lame duck commission. And I think even presently, this commission is out of its depth. I think Chairman Chebukati is a lowly figure, if I may put it that way. I think in his heart he means well, but he's under so much pressure. And with this new law in place, I think everything is now out of his hands, even as a returning officer, to the effect that his hands are tied now.
Now these people are also overturning the decisions of the Supreme Court on elections by removing provisions on technology. You remember, the Supreme Court said that the Electoral Commission did not conduct elections in accordance with the Constitution and the laws. Now, instead of now complying with the law, they're now changing the law to suit their own objectives. Faced with this reality, we have no other option but to take the battle to the people.
All right, deep divisions in Kenyan politics brought about by those proposed amendments that are still a process that is still ongoing. When we return after this quick commercial break, we'll get into that. And then, of course, focus at where the country is, what is the status of this nation.